Hello and welcome back to the Chicken for Breakfast podcast.
Where we have all the answers to one very simple question.
What's cooking?
That's right. Today, we have a very special episode in mind. We traveled over here to the Tech Hive for DigitalC, and our guest is none other than Joshua Edmonds. What's up, man? How are you?
Man, I'm all right. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I know we're going to be talking about a lot of things, internet access, DigitalC, who we are. In addition to that, what the future looks like for a more connected Cleveland.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great way to just start it out, man. Thank you. So let's get into what DigitalC is and kind of the mission statement of the company.
Yeah, so DigitalC, we are a nonprofit technology social enterprise. That's a mouthful. Pretty much what that means is we are still a 501c3, but we have a business plan. And that's not to say that none of the 501c3s do, but to have the technical prowess to be able to provide home internet throughout the city of Cleveland, that takes a whole lot of, one, staffing, intellect, insight, looking at trends. I mean, the fact that we went all the way to Silicon Valley and took the best in wireless technology and brought it here to Cuyahoga Valley, I mean, that's transformational. And so that's in a nutshell kind of who we are, but our mission is to bridge the digital divide for good. That's the best way of saying it. And the shortest way we say it is we connect people. We connect people to our space, the Midtown Tech Hive. We connect them to learning and training, because we do offer training services. But more than anything, we connect them to high-speed, affordable internet at $18 a month throughout the city of Cleveland.
That's great. $18 a month. That's crazy.
You can't really beat that.
You cannot beat that. 65 cents a day, or in the best Cleveland price, we can say $216 a year, 216.
Hey, it works out. It works out.
As we've kind of set up our own businesses and even for the house, I've had to do a lot of calling internet companies and trying to get setups, and they're calling me all the time. And it's a lot, and it's expensive too. I feel like I can never find something that's not going to expect me to pay $80 to $100 a month.
That's right.
And that's fine by me in my mind, because I'm a big internet user. I work on the internet. We create content for the internet. Most of my life is beamed through the internet, but for kind of like family homes where you might just need to send an email or watch a YouTube video or do some online homework. That just feels like so much.
Oh, it's excessive. And I would even just say, just with our economy right now, I mean, you all see what a carton of eggs is doing. Yeah. And so I'm like, if that price is going to keep going up, if gas prices are going to keep going up, they're going to keep fluctuating, the everyday consumer in Cleveland, they're going to be stressed. And at some point, someone's going to look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs and say, you know what, when it comes to that internet stuff, do I really need it? Our answer is yes. But a lot of people, it's like, man, look, if I don't have food, if I don't have water, if I don't have electricity in my home, I don't have power, if I don't have heat when it's 2 degrees outside, well, I'm going to choose those things over internet. But when people keep making that choice over internet, it reinforces this digital divide. And what that then looks like is, all right, if I am a parent raising a child, is that child then going to become an engineer? I'm not saying that they won't, but what's the likelihood if you have this relationship with technology that, well, it's not, I don't need it. I don't need technology. Or if someone is even social service enrollment of benefits, there are so many people in Cleveland who qualify for benefits, but those benefits require you to enroll online. If you don't have that internet connection, that doesn't happen.
Even in our workforce development programs, right? You can't even find those things without the internet. You can't find the assistance you need for a lot of things without internet. So I think it's okay to be like, internet is a necessity. That's not that's a newer thing. That's us technologically advancing.
From top to bottom. I mean, I know I can't, think of how many places I've walked into just looking for a job. And their whole thing is, we don't do paper applications anymore. It's all online.
Apply online.
You go to Whole Foods to buy some food, and if you got an Amazon account, you want to link your Amazon account to get a little discount on the thing. So I feel like even, it's the internet's taken over in a big way from start to finish, to the simplest things in life to the most complex. You got to have some form of internet connection.
Yeah, during COVID, I mean, you couldn't even hold a menu. Everything was scanning a QR code to even order your food, to even see what a restaurant had. That's the evolution. And also what happened during COVID, we had a census, and across the country, And in your big cities, you didn't see it as much, but it's going to happen in the next census, but you had to do the census online. And so if you don't have an internet connection, you don't count. And if you don't count, you don't matter. And so like the work that DigitalC is doing is we are taking this population, and in Cleveland's case, you have over a third of residents historically who don't have an internet connection. A third of residents who are underbanked, meaning they don't have bank accounts, online banking. A third of residents who are struggling with literacy, i.e. reading. So it's like the third that we're attacking is a third that has so many more implications. This is a third of people who might be struggling to pay taxes, people whose homes are in foreclosure, people who are consistently moving. So like DigitalC, we are taking the boldest step forward and saying, how do we empower the residents who have historically been on the wrong side of the digital divide, but on the wrong side of all these other divides too? The internet is the connection point to broader opportunity. So when you limit internet access, you're limiting opportunity. So if you provide internet access, you're providing opportunity.
What is your, I don't think we really talked about it. What is your role here? Like, what are you kind of in charge of?
I'm the chief everyone officer.
Nice. Nice.
Everything I should say. So chief executive officer. So I obviously lead the organization, function as a spokesperson for it. If there's fundraising, government affairs, political stuff, or even even driving the team to objectives, goals, informing hiring practices, and trusting but verifying consistently. So phenomenal team here. They make my job significantly easier, but my job is not easy in the slightest. But they make it easier just because the way they show up, the passion, the energy. And my job is to keep them motivated, keep them inspired. You know, I'm not the person who came with network engineering fundamentals. That's not my sweet spot. My job is to operate in this vision, operate in this purpose, and ensure that everybody at this organization, this company, and all our partners and friends, we are all aligned on what needs to be done. That means from a quality assurance standpoint, just because our internet is $18 doesn't mean that we do $18 worth of work. We make sure that this work is top notch, that it is carrier class, that if you went to any other ones, and I'm not going to name them because I'm not giving them the free advertising, but any other internet company, it's not meant to be that there's a dip in expectation and service just because we're in Cleveland, or just because we're Black-led, or just because we're a nonprofit. It's meant to be that, yes, you can choose them, or you can choose us. You can support the only internet service provider headquartered in Cleveland. And thankfully, over 3,500 customers to date have made that decision in Cleveland.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Those are good numbers.
It's starting January 2024 too. So the fact that we began building our network in January 2024, and now that network covers over 100,000 homes. The fact that by June, this entire city is going to be covered. June 2025. I mean, that's phenomenal to be able to say. The fact that by the end of this year, we'll have north of 8,000 homes in our network. I mean, this thing is growing rapidly. And how many times can we say in Cleveland, have we been able to see something so disruptive right in our faces? Usually we, as a city, pass on opportunities like this. We see phenomenal tech opportunities and we'll say, that's not us. That's California, or that's Atlanta. It's like, no, this is Cleveland. Cleveland is the only city in America with the telecommunications infrastructure that is being deployed to date. We are the only ones who are going to have something like this. And like, I think that alone, that shifts the perspective on what Cleveland is capable of. And when we say that at the city level, now the households and residents can buy into that. And just like how we're doing more, they can do more too.
Absolutely. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but could you explain a little more what makes your broadband initiative just a little bit more unique compared to others?
Yeah, so again, you're not going to find this in any other city. So we have this list of least connected cities in the country. These are cities who don't have adequate internet access, or their residents aren't subscribing. To me, it doesn't really make a point to differentiate, because it's like, either if they can't afford it, it doesn't matter what it is. If they can't afford it, they can't afford it. Or if the infrastructure is bad, they're not going to pay for it. So either way, for us, you can see the Baltimores, you can see the Phillies, you can see the Detroits, you can see the Memphises, you can see these pervasive digital divides, and then you can look at Cleveland and say, man, Cleveland, out of all those cities, we are the only city in this country of our size to have a DigitalC. All the other ones, you have these other big telecom companies that they really don't have to focus on the small guy.
Right.
They're going to go after the two-parent household who's able to make all this money and be able to support that, who can say, you can sign up for a bill at $50 and you're paying $110 and you might be inconvenienced, but it's not really killing you. Whereas that other person that we're serving, every dollar counts. Every penny counts, actually. And to be able to have an $18 a month product that in any other market would easily go for $60 or $70 a month, that's insane. In addition to that, most telecom companies, when they're building out networks, they'll start in the suburbs first because they're like, hey, we'll get paying customers better. We'll make sure that they're the customers that we want. In our case, we're like, no, we're not a profit-driven company. We're a purpose-driven company. And when you're a purpose-driven company, we are looking at eradicating the digital redlining that happened in Cleveland, no different than the other redlining that happened, the digital one. And now we're starting in the city first, and then we will expand out. So we are going for the least of us first and ensuring that they're connected and covered, and then we'll expand outward.
So I think you kind of hit on the point, but is that why there really isn't a DigitalC anywhere else? Is it because, the market they're looking for isn't what they want it to be? Why is there no DigitalC in all these other cities?
It's profoundly difficult. I will say this, we are a glitch in the matrix. This is systemic what we are facing. There's a system that was created that excluded people, that put ceilings on people unnecessarily. And so in order to break that system, you have to be almost perfect. And so this isn't to say that other communities haven't tried to do this. Oh, other people have absolutely tried to do this, but they either got counter lobbied or out lobbied to the point that they couldn't compete, or they just weren't able to get off the ground in a meaningful way. The fact that we were able to not only build out our network, because when we say building out a network, it almost sounds like I'm just saying like that's easy. No way. Everything that goes into this, our network cores, our network operations centers, the engineering staff that's needed, this is incredibly complex. And so the fact that we were able to navigate the way we were, it's blessings, it's luck, it's chance, it's a number of things that we just bet right continuously and kept winning. Now, by winning, I don't want to make it seem like we didn't lose. No, we won because we lost. We failed often, and we continuously fail. And in our failure, that's how we're able to mold our success. And so we've just been given a very long runway. The fact that I'm talking about a network being built in January of 2024, that's not to say that we didn't have other networks before. We had pilots. Our 10-year anniversary is this July. And so it's like for anyone who's ever created a startup, they would understand our growth and our trajectory. For the people who haven't created startups and for the people who have maybe more negative things to say about DigitalC, it's like, well, you've never been in the arena.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't know how hard it is to get a touchdown because you've never even been on the field. And so it's like for people who've actually played, who've actually been on the field, they understand what we're building here is such a unicorn and it's such a game-changing endeavor. But again, for the people who are maybe a bit more negative about DigitalC, whether they're paid to be negative about us or for whatever reason, a lot of those people just have never actually had to be in an arena, and we know that. So we just kind of look at them and say, good job.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. So I'm glad you kind of led us right in. There obviously there have been some media reports and just things about DigitalC falling short. But we've looked at the numbers, and that's not necessarily the case. Could you kind of elaborate on what DigitalC has accomplished so far and how that compares to other programs similar in other internet companies?
Oh, yeah. So what we've accomplished, it's unprecedented. And I'm not saying that just to say it. There is not a precedent. No one has actually built this network. And so it's like the fact that we're the first one, we're writing our own success at this point. So we had initially communicated that within 12 months that we would have 75,000 homes covered with our service. Wow. Within 12 months, we had 82,000 homes covered. So it's like, okay, exceeded the first metric, which again, in spite of tornadoes, in spite of the city government getting hacked and delaying permitting, in spite of all those things, we still exceeded that. So like, okay. The other one, we said that we were going to train 7,500 residents in our first year. Well, we trained, I want to say it was 7,800 residents. So it's like, okay, we exceeded the training number. And then the third one, we said that we were going to install 3,500 customers in our first year. We installed 2,802 customers in our first year. And the reason why that one had a bit of a delay, so we were 20% short in that goal, was we weren't actually able to do the door knocking needed. So in order, Cleveland's a city of relationships. Like, we have to be able to knock on doors here. Like, we can't just assume, and we don't have the budget of some of these big internet providers where we can have a Super Bowl ad. Like, we can't afford that. So It's like, what would you do? Feet on the street. You're knocking on doors. We didn't get the permit approval despite applying for the permit approval over a year in advance. We didn't get the permit approval until September of last year. So we built out this network, could knock on a single door, and we can't advertise online effectively because the same people we want to reach don't have internet connections.
Right. I was going to say that, a lot of that's online advertising, and either people aren't connected.
So it's like, sometimes someone would have to look on the outside in and say, okay, well, did the same people who say we're coming up short, did they do everything in their power to ensure that we wouldn't? Well, no, because if you're going to tell me that they did, it wouldn't take over a year to get a permit. So those are the type of things that when we begin deconstructing narrative, this city is a city that struggles to ask a follow-up question. Like, it's like someone can just take a narrative and run with it. And it's like, did anyone think to say, well, why? Well, no, they just want to run with it. And I'm like, well, who benefits from DigitalC being painted in a negative light? And I think that's the questions that we need to start looking at. Why would something so disruptive, so powerful on the ground, why would someone want to kill it? And I think that's something that just needs to be explored.
No, that's a fantastic question.
That's always a question you want to be asked.
And that question doesn't get asked in Cleveland. Instead, what does get not even asked, what just gets said is DigitalC failed, they're bad. It's like, that's what it is? No, why? We just failed, we're just bad? That's it? No one else has done this in any other city, and somehow we're bad. Again, this city struggles to ask a follow-up question, and in the inability to ask a follow-up question, it's intentional because someone gets to frame a narrative.
Right.
People don't like nuance. It's either good or bad, black or white. But what happens when success is happening in front of you, it's harder for people to then justify DigitalC as failing when you start asking follow-up questions, when we start getting the weight of a narrative. Right. So what are we going to do? We're just going to morph the narrative into this binary thing versus this nuanced depth conversation.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in pretty much anything, but especially this situation, there's a lot of challenges, and people like to focus on the things that went wrong rather than not realizing all of the facts.
That's right.
Like you're mentioning, like it's all binary, but like there's a huge nuance behind that.
There's
what are we trying to accomplish? What are the goals? What are the challenges? What does it actually take to do this thing, right? Mm-hmm. Which kind of brings us to the permit challenge, right? You guys had a challenge getting the permits, but once you did, the installation rates were like 150% more, right?
Yeah, we had like over 150% increase when we were just able to knock on doors. And it's like, and everyone knows this. And that's the part where it's like, again, if you had a decision that said, you know what, my constituency, they need to be connected. They deserve to be connected. Then you would do everything in your power to empower people to connect them.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where it's like, it's confusing to us, but we don't sit in the seats that can bang a gavel and approve a permit. We don't sit in those seats.
Yeah.
But if we're going to be held to a standard by the gavel hitters, then I would think that the gavel hitters would do everything in their power to ensure that we're able to be successful.
So it kind of sounds like you're in unknown territory. Obviously, you're the first people to be doing this in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sounds like there's opposition out there
mm-hmm.
who might not want this to roll out.
Oh yeah.
You don't want it to roll out.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you fighting that? Like in terms of funding, door knocking, all of that. If it's not the city that's necessarily has your back, how are you making that happen?
We have some phenomenal partners who are really stepping up for us. I mean, the fact that Mandel Myers Foundations in Cleveland, they gave us a significant amount of capital to not only make sure we had the appropriate staff we need, but to be able to get this network built. So the city didn't invest any money at the onset. So all of the success that we're seeing, that is specifically related to the Mandel Myers Foundations, as well as the state of Ohio. Those two are the ones who stepped up and said, we are going to be investing in digital equity and we're going to make sure that this network works. The city held their money in a performance-based contract and said, if you hit these goals, we'll then release our money. And so the city is a partner in what we're doing. I do want to make that clear. They are a partner, but the other ones made sure that this historic digital divide, they were going to make the upfront investment because they believe in that. And so in addition to that, we did secure a congressional earmark from Congresswoman Shontel Brown. And so with those investments and those relationships secure, it now is us building relationships with residents and other community organizations. On our board is the school district. It is the public library. We do work with the housing authority here. I mean, we're working with the CDs, the community development corporations. I mean, all these community organizations. This is meant to be unlocking the power of a community-based network. And so when you're operating in that way, I mean, we couldn't do this without community. We couldn't do this without our residents. The number one way that people find out about our service is word of mouth. It's when people get it. They then tell their neighbors, they then tell their grandparents, they then tell their aunts, their uncles, their brothers, their sisters. This network has grown through the network of relationships that already exists in Cleveland. And now that it's valuable, people can stand behind it. No different than if you just watch a movie that you love. Hey man, you gotta watch this movie.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. and I'm glad that it's a movie worth watching. And people aren't saying, hey, this thing sucks.
And people don't necessarily understand what it takes to build a broadband company from the ground up.
That's right.
Right. So could you give us a sense of how much it actually costs to do it?
It costs everything. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, the capital, for one, let's say we wanted just one internet connection. If I wanted to expand internet to one person's house, let's say that's a house in Huff, it would take us about 2 hours worth of work, maybe 2.5 of labor that we pay at prevailing wages. So union labor is being paid. In addition to that, it's about $1,000 worth of equipment. And that's not even including the fleet, the gas, all that goes into that. That's not including all the expertise and the training that it took to get a technician up to speed. And then we do all that for $18 a month. And so when you begin looking at that, only a nonprofit could do that. Yeah. And only a nonprofit would do that in the conditions where we're going. We're not going into Bracknell. We're not. We're going into some of the neighborhoods that a lot of people don't go into. We're going to houses that people would avoid. And we're going to those and we're serving them with the best technology that has ever been deployed. Like, that's the type of stuff that when you begin looking at this narrative that's being constructed, it does cost us everything. We're putting our safety on the line. We're putting our lives on the line. We're putting our relationships, our brand, our personal brands, our career. Like, it costs everything to do this. And that's precisely why we're doing it. Because if no one's willing to make that sacrifice, then we DigitalC will make that sacrifice. And that's why our funders and our friends are so important to us, because when things get tough, they're standing with us. We see other people in the city that when it's a celebration, they come out, but when it's a negative media article, they're silent. Like, we see that stuff, and it's like, Cleveland has to get out of its own way. Cleveland has to be able to look at something and stand for something. Step up. We see the stuff that's happening federally right now, where we've had people historically support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then the minute they think it's going to make a president mad, they just scrap it. And it's like, how do you have years of doubling down on something that you said you believed in, and the minute, within months, you just scrub it? Like, that's where it's like, Cleveland, grow a backbone. Support something that you actually believe in. You've been the least connected city for over a decade, and now all of a sudden we're showing up and seeing progress, and because you have some negative media articles influenced by we know who, at this point, like, you then fold? Like, then either your commitments weren't real to begin with, or you need to have a reality check. See, we're in the arena right now. So, like, we get to talk like this. But for the other people who are watching, I'm like, man, all right, like, you're just watching. Yeah. But what a shame that all of your words and all of your investments materialized to nothing when things actually got tough. But I had to give a shout out again to our partners and funders and friends who actually do believe in bridging this digital divide, and they're not going to be dissuaded when they see a negative headline.
In the heart of our community, there's an internet service provider that's changing the game. Introducing DigitalC, your partner in bridging the digital divide. DigitalC brings you the power of superior technology. We've invested in cutting-edge infrastructure to ensure lightning-fast speeds and reliable connectivity. With DigitalC, you'll experience internet like never before. Say goodbye to buffering and hello to seamless online experiences. But that's not all. DigitalC believes that everyone deserves access to affordable internet. Our pricing plans are designed to fit your budget without compromising on quality. DigitalC goes beyond providing internet access. We believe in empowering our community through digital literacy initiatives. Our digital literacy programs ensure that everyone can fully participate in the digital age, unlocking opportunities for education, employment, and connection. DigitalC is the best choice to bridge the digital divide. With superior technology, affordable prices, and a commitment to digital literacy, we are transforming our community. Join the DigitalC community today. Visit our website or call us to experience the power of superior technology, affordable prices, and digital empowerment. DigitalC, bridging the digital divide, one connection at a time.
Clearly, there are people out there who don't necessarily want things to happen how they're happening. There's people who just aren't interested in making it happen, and then there are people who seem to be working in the other direction. Like, not only do I not want this to happen, I'm going to make sure it doesn't.
That's right.
Or I'm going to hit them where it hurts to slow them down. It seems like DigitalC's been hit with some maybe kind of out of nowhere, we'll ding you some money on this, we'll ding you some money on that. What kind of message does that send? But what does that also do to DigitalC as a nonprofit trying to roll out this big plan?
I think it sends a unique message, and that's the best way I can say. I mean, I don't think we expected to have the success that we had for people to paint us the way that they did. I think that's just confusing to us. And, it is absolutely a double standard, because it's like, look, okay, I can look at all these initiatives in Cleveland. Seldom do these initiatives ever reach the success that we did in our first year. Some of these initiatives have been around for years, who continuously get funding, but yet for us in our first year, we were able to connect more people and touch more lives in Cleveland and bring prominence to this city in 1 year than some people have done in decades. And so then all of a sudden we turn around and it's painted in such a way that it's like, I hear even sometimes at some of the council table, people are bringing up examples to try and smear us from stuff that happened when I was in high school. It's like, I'm like, what discussion are we even having here at this point? Because it's like, if we want to then say, well, what happened when I was in high school, let's just make sure that we do that with every institution. And I mean every institution. That means government. That means everybody. Like, if we're going to go after DigitalC this way, let's just make sure we're doing that with everybody. And if we're not willing to do that exercise, then we probably shouldn't be bringing that stuff up. But see, if we're able to just smear any type of way, I still have to just wonder, and again, ask the follow-up question, why? Why is that the stance that you would take against a nonprofit? When no one else was doing this, no one else wanted to go into Central and make the investments in time, effort, and energy that we did. No one wanted to go into Huff, no one wanted to go into Glenville, and now that we're doing it, now all of a sudden it's bad. And that's the type of stuff that, I know someone would argue, well, we're not saying it's bad, it's just that, you said this, it's like, look, people said a lot of things. Yeah. We have to be, from a performance-based contract standpoint, we got to be fast. We got to be fast. Every second counts. And so when someone delays getting us a permit, i.e. to the tune of over a year to get a simple permit to knock on doors, where is that standard of speed then? Like, again, you can't tie our hands. You can't tie our hands and then get mad when we didn't knock on enough doors. It's like, you do realize that we need you to unlock this for us to then do our goals. But if that's not happening, again, we just had to ask, why? Why is that happening? Why, when we were financially dinged, when we're connecting kids in Cleveland Public School District, that was brought up? Well, because Cleveland Public School District, they're paying for the internet, which, by the way, is a great deal. Cleveland Public School District, we thank you. It's a great deal. They paid for the internet for their families. That makes sense, because what did CMSD learn? They learned that during the pandemic, that they had experienced so much learning loss at home when kids didn't have the internet that they said never again. At any given point, and this is the reality of the situation, we could have another pandemic tomorrow. That's what happens when you have global pandemics. They have no different than an earthquake. There's aftershocks. There are periods where people get sick again, and they might have to work from home. They might just shut things down. You are going to need these internet connections. So penalizing DigitalC for connecting families who need the internet, it sends a message the wrong way. It sends a lot of messages. It sends one message that we don't care about our kids. Because what entity would ever say we are going to penalize the kids for getting internet? What city would go against their own kids? We're a future-focused company. We're technology. So we look at the future a different way. But for someone to say that we are going to be penalized and dinged because we connected kids within the public school district, who does that? What other city in America would say we don't want our kids to be successful? And so that is a message that was sent that, we were shocked. We hope that maybe it was just an oversight or an error, that people genuinely would not look at kids in public school district, especially Cleveland's public school district, and say that somehow the work that we did shouldn't count. That to me, I'm still trying to understand why, but more than anything, we're doubling down on our commitment. We are going to continue to connect these kids, because one of these kids might be the next CEO of Apple, the next CEO of DigitalC, the next CEO of a new startup, because they're that brilliant that the only thing they needed was an internet connection. And so we're still going to keep doing that work, and we're still going to keep connecting these families, because that's what you do when you're a nonprofit. You look at the odds that are stacked against you and you say, you know what, I see those odds, but at the end of the day, we have a mission. Our mission is to bridge the digital divide, not just for some, but for everybody. And by us doing that, it's going to unlock opportunities, not even just for DigitalC, but for this city. And so I think that some of the people who are looking to penalize us, they might need to reassess their position, because they're not on the right side of history. And we're going to look at this moment and say, okay, when it's all said and done, just remember, when it came to connecting kids and empowering this future, you decided to stand over there. And you decided to throw rocks at this in a way that, again, I'm just confused.
The more logical solution reduction, I guess, the more logical reduction would have been 20% off of the 1.75 million. That would have allowed DigitalC to kind of operate effectively.
And to take it one step further, I don't believe there should have been any reduction. Because again, you can't, on one hand, hold us to a standard, and then on the other hand, you impeded our ability to get that standard.
Absolutely.
That's like a referee in a football game tackling the wide receiver, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, you guys lost. It's like, you interfered with progress. You didn't let the game play out the way it was supposed to play. Make it fair for everybody. We signed a contract in July, and we backdated it to January. So from January to July, we were just working on this contract. And no other industry would someone sit down without a signed contract and do work on good faith.
Yeah.
We did that, but that good faith wasn't extended to us for us to be able to do that door knocking. So it's like, okay, we, again, the nonprofit showed up and said, we believe in this work. You know what? Fine. We'll sign it whenever, but work's going to start in January, and we're going to commit to get this thing done. So we do all that stuff. The contract doesn't get signed for us to be able to, or the permit doesn't get signed for us to be able to do the door knocking until September. Despite, again, a year in advance we applied for it. I don't know what other permit takes that long, but apparently ours did. And then we fast forward, then we get dinged, and somehow we're penalized. Again, that's why the 20% doesn't even make sense to me. You interfered with progress. If you want to call a fair game, call a fair game. But if you have an unfair game, then to me, I don't think that there should be any reduction. Unless that person on the other side did everything in their power to ensure we're successful, for which, if it takes over a year to get a permit and that's what it takes, then we got a long way ahead of us, not just for DigitalC, but for everybody in this city. And so which one is it? It's like, again, I don't believe there should be any reduction whatsoever, but if there was one, the 20% we were short, that makes sense. But the degree in which we were penalized, again, I'm still struggling to understand why.
Yeah, that's a lot. So you mentioned before DigitalC is future focused.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of brought it up there at the end of what is the future going to look like, not only for students, but just for residents as well. So what is the actual future of DigitalC? I mean, what do you have planned out for the future?
Mm-hmm.
And are people taking notice of that?
Oh,
Around
yeah.
Cleveland, outside of Cleveland, outside of Ohio?
Oh, yeah. So, it's so funny. Let's imagine for a second the game of basketball isn't as popular as it is. Let's say the game of basketball it's growing in popularity. Some people know about it, but it's not really popular in Cleveland. But outside of Cleveland, everyone knows about basketball. That's kind of how DigitalC is viewed in the telecom world. Outside of Cleveland here, people don't really understand telecom, and I get it, because again, we're one of the least connected cities in America. You wouldn't. But let us go to a telecom conference. Everybody, DigitalC, oh man, you guys are doing incredible work. Oh my gosh. The amount of cities who reach out to us, who want us to build networks, who want us to replicate, because we know how to do it now. If you can, and everyone in the entrepreneurship and startup and business space knows exactly what I mean when I say this. If you can have success in Cleveland, you can have success in anywhere. The amount of unnecessary curveballs that are thrown here, that's also a big reason why a lot of businesses leave Cleveland. Because a lot of them are just like, you know what? Why would I go through all these mazes to get this when in everywhere else it's a straight line to get that? And so that's why a lot of people leave now. We're not of that mindset because we're committed to the people of Cleveland. We want Cleveland, and we look at Cleveland as our crown jewel. We want Cleveland to be the broadband internet envy of the world. We want everyone to look at it and say, how do they go from worst to first, the least connected to the most connected, in such a short amount of time? How did it, in January of 2024, Governor DeWine was in this building giving a press conference as he allocated $10 million to this effort. How did we go from January 2024, least connected city, to June 2025, a whole citywide network is built? That right there is something that never happens anywhere. No one builds networks that fast in cities. And so the fact that we mastered this, oh yeah, other cities are asking us. So we do have a goal to expand. Anywhere where there's a digital divide, we now have configured a weapon that is aimed purely at eradicating the digital divide. And this weapon needs to be exported where there's a digital divide anywhere, we are attacking it. Because the thing about the digital divide is a divide anywhere affects all of us. That's one less person buying and supporting a small business with their product online. That's one less person who is building a relationship with their healthcare system to enroll in MyChart and expand telehealth in America. That's one less person who is economically participating, civically participating with government. That's one less person. That's one less household. And so for us, we are focused specifically on Cleveland, but as we grow in scale, there's gonna be other regions throughout the state of Ohio, other regions throughout this country that we have a keen interest on replicating and ensuring that this model is able to grow and expand well beyond Cleveland, but keeping Cleveland the crown jewel. We want everyone to look at Cleveland and say, I want that Cleveland model. What they're doing in Cleveland is something special, despite whatever someone is saying. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's a good message. I think that's a great message. Got to put us on the map in a better light, for sure.
Like this is no longer the mistake on the lake. Like that narrative is dead. No more. Especially with what we just invested, what we just did, and what we're still doing. There's no mistake here. And if this is a mistake, then I think a lot of people would like to be mistaken.
Are you tired of slow internet speeds and exorbitant bills from the big guys? Look no further than DigitalC, the game changer in affordable and high-quality internet service. While the big guys claim to offer the best, DigitalC takes it to a whole new level. Our cutting-edge technology delivers lightning-fast speeds and a seamless online experience. But that's not all. Unlike the big guys, DigitalC understands the importance of affordability. With DigitalC, you can get the best technology at a fraction of the cost, starting at just $18 per month. Yes, you heard it right. Our solution is not only superior in quality, but it's also 40% less expensive than what the big guys offer. Why settle for less when you can have the best? Join the DigitalC family today and experience the internet like never before. DigitalC. Unleash the power of affordable, lightning-fast internet.
So we've talked through a lot of things in this episode so far. I mean, and it sounds like in the history of DigitalC, there's been a lot of highs, some lows. It's been a wild ride, to say the least, I think.
Yeah.
What is it that keeps this thing moving forward? Right, with all the pit stops, with all the stuff that seems to want to derail what you have happening now, what kind of keeps it moving forward? And what message are you hoping that is sending out to people?
Man, it's a promise. We made a promise. We made a promise of bridging this digital divide for good. That was a promise. It's a promise. At some point, the money doesn't matter anymore. At some point, it just gets real gritty, just nasty. Just, again, I said it earlier, we are in the arena. We're in the arena. We are fighting. So imagine an old Coliseum. Tigers, lions, and whatever other elements that people want to throw. We're in that, and it's quite literally, for some of the families we're serving, this is an economic or this is a well-being life or death scenario. So if you have people that you love, that you saw yourself in, when we're connecting these residents, I see my families in these people. I see my childhood friends. I see people. And if you knew that, yeah, you're tired, you're fatigued, but if you stop fighting, there's that person's future. There's that person's future. It's all of us. So it's like, no, man, it's a promise. And when you see it through that lens, failure isn't even an option anymore. Taking a knee is not an option. You got to keep going. And so I would say by us being in the arena and by us having the supporters and the skeptics, because the skeptics are going to turn supporters too in time. That's just how it works. But I would say that's what really keeps us going. And when we begin looking at the future, being able to honestly say that you were able to empower families to dream, to have greater exposure. Again, you have so many hidden geniuses in Cleveland, hidden, that they don't even know they're geniuses. All they needed was an opportunity. All they needed was an internet connection that was affordable, that allowed them to just have time. Like all of us, especially the three of us, like if there was something where someone just said, hey, here's this technology, I just want you to just have fun with it. Be creative, play with it. I learned technology because we had, and this is where I'm old enough to start saying I'm dating myself. My dad had got us a Windows 95 computer when we were kids. And like, I lived on that computer. I just played around the control panel, played around with the drivers and settings. Didn't even know when I was playing in the terminal that I was learning like fundamentals of coding. Didn't even know that stuff. But it was only because I had access to technology that I could just play. I could just be creative. I could be fostering ingenuity. Give people that opportunity. And I promise you, this city is going to advance in ways that we've never seen before. But it's not going to come from someone flying in on a really nice jet that's going to talk about Cleveland and, yeah, that'll get us a jump start. No. If Cleveland's going to fix Cleveland, it's going to come from within. And if we're going to do any of that stuff, it has to come from greater exposure to a digital world where we are not victim of digital circumstance, i.e. we're not victim of AI taking our jobs. It's more getting a city that we then can use AI to create jobs for us. So it's rewiring Cleveland's brain and saying, Rust Belt no more. We don't even need to wear a belt anymore. We can be something completely new. It's a zero gravity suit we need people to put on because now we're in new heights, new elevations. Everyone else is talking as if they're on the ground. We're in space now. And we've never been here before. It's a new orbit for us. Quite literally, the solar eclipse taught us how close we are to the solar system. And so when we began looking at these new heights for Cleveland, we can't be distracted or dissuaded by the headwinds of people who just don't quite get our significance yet. We don't even give them any more airtime. At this point, for the people who are taking advantage of our service and they're being emboldened by a future that is not limited by crappy infrastructure and overpriced internet, we've solved for that now. And so now we're just we're committing to stay in this arena until this digital divide is beat.
Absolutely. So, kind of wrapping things up here. This was a great episode. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
what would you say, and you can actually look in the camera and say it, what would you say to the public and city leaders regarding DigitalC's work and kind of your message?
I would say that at this point, now is the time to get off the fence. Like, if you're not standing on your feet, fighting with us, fighting for us, then you're missing the message. You're missing the time. I said this before, but really be on the right side of history consciously. Choose that. The headwinds are going to keep coming. There's going to be continuous issues that are around us. There's going to be storms all the time, but now's the time. If you believe in Cleveland and you believe that this digital divide is as pervasive as we've been painting it for over a decade, now's the time for you to get in this fight and support DigitalC. Be an advocate for equitable internet. And be an advocate for words like equity, for DEI, for things like that. Like, be an advocate. When people began coming into these conversations and taking from and trying to put asunder, now's your time to stand up Cleveland and have a backbone and to support something that's legitimately touching and changing lives, changing community, and not looking at something from a year-by-year basis and trying to call a score. That's not how this works. As families are getting impacted, as families are being empowered, let this investment take root, and let's see the trajectory and how it transforms not only Cleveland schools, Cleveland families, Cleveland communities, but Cleveland as a whole. And our imprint is going to be felt not just within Northeast Ohio, but in the world. And I think that people who are not seeing that yet, I would just ask that they exercise good faith and good judgment and align themselves, not with people who have an interest in us not being successful, align themselves with their community, and they will greatly see a difference in the way that DigitalC is operating.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So much of this conversation takes me back to my childhood where, like, I don't know if I would be here today if I hadn't grown up in a household that had put such a focus on computer, internet, technology.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back when, when you wanted to watch a YouTube video, you loaded it up in the morning. By the time you got back to school, you could actually watch the video. So, so much of my childhood is so centered around the internet.
That's right.
And technology.
Mm-hmm.
And for art and for learning and
it's exposure.
For all the things I want to do, and it's brought me pretty far in my life. So, I know firsthand how important having that stuff in home can be,
mm-hmm.
not just in the schools, not just in the libraries, but at your fingertips at home.
That's right.
Yeah, really quick. I was curious about what kind of feedback you've received from, potential investors and resident subscribers.
Yeah.
Like that.
So, like, from an investor standpoint, I mean, the interest is we have the interest. They are in many cases looking at us again as a unicorn. They're like, man, how do we assess the value of what y'all are doing? Yeah. And so I think that it's still new for a lot of people. They're just not expecting Cleveland to come out with a haymaker. It's like, man, Cleveland with a haymaker. Usually y'all just jab and call it a fight. You guys are haymaking right now? Okay, cool. So we have the respect and the highlights from a number of investors, but from a residential standpoint, one of the points of pride that I see every single installation feedback survey. I see them all. When I tell you people don't have to be giving us the scores they're giving us. When I see these 9s and 10s coming in, it's a point of pride. I love that because it's like we are legitimately delivering on our promise. Out of all the people that we connected last year, households, the thousands of households, 38 households disconnected. And so that's like literally like 1%. Like that's in telecom, that we call that churn. That's crazy. That
yeah.
Usually you'd have hundreds of people. Like, we don't have that experience. And when we looked at, well, why were people leaving? Of those 38, half of them just moved from the city. And so like, well, we don't have service in these other parts, so they just moved. So we don't have coverage there. So it's like, okay, we lost that. And then the other half, they were just like, not for me, which I don't know what not for me is, but hey, we can't please everybody. But overwhelming, the residents have just been so supportive here, which is like, we'll never give up hope on Cleveland. The residents of Cleveland, the way they've been supporting us is phenomenal. There was one review that always sticks out to me, and if I was an emotional man, I would have cried. It was like, we see everything that's happening. We, the people, support you. Keep your head up, DigitalC. And I'm like, man, that is so special that someone went out of their way. And again, they don't have to do that. They don't have to say anything. You all know what happens when you can go to a fast food restaurant and get a nice burger and fry every time and no one says anything. But the minute it's cold, it's the worst review in the world. Yeah. And so people will write about the negative reviews. It's the fact that people are going out of their way and saying, you know what? I see the way you guys are being miscategorized by media outlets who have interesting affiliations. We see the way you guys are being categorized, and we don't believe in that. These suburban reporters don't have a lived reality of people in Cleveland. And so the lived reality of Clevelanders are now coming out and saying, nah. So that's why we say it's two sides here. So you can be on one side, or you can be on the side of the people. And the way that the people of Cleveland are supporting us, that's the type of stuff where, like, again, it's clear. The reviews speak for themselves. And I'm proud that we haven't been review bombed because people have just been supporting us. And we can verify who is a customer and who isn't. Who's trying to inflate and it's real. And the fact that it's real and I can sleep well at night because it's real, that's a blessing.
Thanks so much for being here, Josh.
Absolutely.
Incredible episode. A lot we talked about. A lot of really important stuff we talked about. This isn't just an internet company. It's like you said, these are people's lives. These are people's futures.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to thank you for being here, for giving us this great episode to deliver out to people.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll wrap it here. Is there anything you want to tell the people? Is there some way they can kind of get into DigitalC, see what's going on, maybe get it in their home if they need that internet connection? Thank
you for the plug. So you can go to www.digitalc.org. And I understand you're like, hey, I don't have internet. Got you. You can also call 216-777-3859. Or you can stop by the Midtown Tech Hive. We're right off the Euclid corridor. So we're at 69th and Euclid. Again, it's Midtown Tech Hive. You can walk in. We can sign you up for service. Or if you just want to know more about who we are, again, pull up. We're here pretty much every day of the week, and we'd be eager to just build relationships with anyone who is able to see this episode.
Absolutely, and if you have a friend or a family member or just anyone you know who does not have internet and it's a necessity in their life, also send them that way.
Yes, this is a communal effort. So again, just because you might be good, that's great that you're good, but don't make the assumption that your grandmother, your uncle, your aunt, your friends, like everyone can benefit from an internet connection. COVID has proved that. Every day it's proved even more and more. So just make sure that your people are good, especially in this economy. $18 a month internet goes a real long way. Yeah.
And it's not just the internet, it's the learning of the digital and internet literacy.
That's right.
Computer literacy.
That's right.
That really bumps it up over the top.
So,
just giving people an internet connection is great.
Yep.
Teach them how to use the internet, how it's going to benefit them. Well, that's just fantastic.
Oh yeah, and that's free. That's free training. So like if you're always that person, your grandparents or parents or even siblings are always asking you, hey, how do I do this? I don't do that tech stuff. We help fix that. We have curriculums, our team internally will teach you how to protect yourself online with our cybersecurity 101 classes. I mean, we offer a bevy of classes that are just oriented to ensure that people are protected as they navigate the ever-expanding digital world for free.
You can't beat free.
No.
Absolutely not.
So I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching this episode. Thanks, Josh, for being here.
Thank you.
For racing our humble podcast here. And remember, chicken is a soul food.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
So why not start your day out right with chicken for breakfast? See you next time.